Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels, and thank you to our supporters Mr Fothergill Seeds and Cobra Garden. Today I'm going to be deadheading and feeding lilies, and we're going to be dealing with some unruly brassicas in the veg plot. Well, I thought we'd start in the veg plot, and overall things are growing okay at the moment. The rain we've had over the last couple of weeks has really come just at the right time, because some things were starting to struggle, and it certainly helped the brassica bed here. The cabbages, the Brussels, the kales, all doing very well, except for this first row, and this is summer broccoli, or Calabrese, you probably know. You get those lovely big florets through late summer and the autumn time, and they're lovely. Really enjoy them, very tasty, full of nutrients of course. But this year, and I think it's purely down to the weather, we've had very changeable weather. It was very hot earlier on in the season, which they didn't like. Then we've had cool weather, windy weather, wet weather. It's been all over the place really. They've just gone to seed, so we've not actually cut anything off this row, and they've just blown and gone to seed. As soon as the florets start to develop, they've grown really quickly and flowered. Butterflies have been a problem this year. I use this netting over all the brassicas, suspended on canes with the little pots on there, just to keep the butterflies off, and it works fairly well. But what's happened here is, because these flowers have touched the netting, the caterpillars have been hatched on there from the eggs laid by the butterflies, so we are now getting caterpillar damage inside the net. So it's a case of going inside, getting rid of these, and then cultivating the ground, and we can plant something else in its space. So just going to pull off this netting, just being careful. I don't want to take it too far back because I don't want to let any caterpillars in. So I'm just going to pull it off, and then it's literally just a case, these are now going to be for the compost heap. So they should pull out okay. I'm going to take that cane out just so I don't damage myself, and they should pull out okay. Give them a good shake to get rid of it, and you can see they are now starting to be eaten quite badly there. There's damage by the caterpillars on them, lots of little holes on there. There are caterpillars around, but you can see everything has just gone to seed. So they're going to go on the compost heap, and what I tend to do with them to help them rot down, it's just a case of try and chop everything into small pieces. It's quite soft material, it's not woody, so it will rot down on the compost heap, and it's just a case of the smaller you can chop it, and spend just a few minutes doing it. And I'll probably go over this and chop it a little bit more, to be fair, to get it nice and small, and mix that in with some grass cuttings or some other nice soft material, and it will rot down. Any caterpillars in there, well, they'll probably feed for a little bit and probably come to an end, and if I pick any off, they get taken down to my hens and thrown in, and the hens have a real treat. They just love caterpillars. It's like caviar to them. So I'm going to get rid of all of these, pull up this entire row, and then just fork the ground over loosely. In fact, there's a caterpillar dropped to the ground. If any fall to the ground, I need to make sure that I get all of those caterpillars. It's the caterpillar of the cabbage white butterfly. So I'm going to put them in there, and then I can pick any out that fall to the bottom and give them to the hens. But you don't want to leave them under the netting, because otherwise what will happen is they're going to completely devastate the rest. So I'm going to cover that back over when I've finished. Just spotted this down here though. The cauliflower is doing all right. There's a nice cauliflower just developing in there. There is a little bit of caterpillar damage already on it, so I'm going to harvest that because it's ready. I can see where the caterpillars have been, so I'm going to get that out, because if I leave it in, it will soon go over and it will blow and be no good, but also the caterpillars will get on there and make a real mess. So I'm just going to trim off these leaves, get rid of those, and that will be absolutely fine. Just might rinse it under the tap just to make sure there's no remains of the caterpillars on there, and then that can go in the fridge, and that will be turned into lovely cauliflower cheese by Mrs Fish soon. So there is a bonus from that. So I'm going to check through it all, take these out, cover it over, and hopefully the caterpillars won't spread and do any more damage. Just thought I'd quickly check the lilies. We've got various clumps of them around the garden, and this is one of the tree lilies. They're called tree lilies. They're actually ordinary lilies that just grow very tall. They die back down to a big underground bulb, and they're hardy. These have been in the garden about 9-10 years now, and they just come back year after year. This is a lovely deep pink one. We've also got a lovely pale yellow one in a different border, and they will often get taller than this. This one is probably 7 feet, but sometimes they'll get 8 feet plus if we get a really good growing season that's not too dry at the start. So what do we do with them now? Well, as we can see, they've finished flowering and we've got these seed pods developing. What I want to do is now let them die down naturally. So I cut them down just below the lowest seed pod. So we can see these were all flowers here, and I'm just going to trace this down, just getting amongst this Circe's forest pansy, and I'm going to cut it down to that point there. It's not exact, but we can see these were the lowest flowers on it. So I'm just going to cut that off with the secateurs like that, and do the same with these others in here. So just cut those off, and that stops it producing seed. And then what the plant will do is continue to grow through the rest of the summer into autumn, and all the goodness in these leaves will then go back to the bulb, so we get lovely flowers next year. And that's the same even if you've got small lilies like this one in a pot. We had this by our back door. It looked really lovely for several weeks. It's finished now, so I'm going to do exactly the same. It's just a case of going over all the flowering stems and cutting them back like that. We don't want the seed. Lilies can be grown from seed, but they're going to be variable because these are hybrids and they can take up to 4 years to flower. So I'm not going to bother with any seed, so just cut these down. So that tidies it up, and again we're going to let that die down. What you must never do is cut them down at this stage now, because otherwise it weakens the bulb. And finally, what will also help them is to give them a feed. So a good liquid feed, seaweed is great, it's instant, so you could water them in containers with this or any liquid feed that you've got. And for the lilies that I've got growing in the borders, I'm just going to put a little bit of this general fertiliser. This is dried poultry pellets, but grow more or anything that you've got. Just sprinkle a handful or two around the base, work it into the soil. If it's dry, water it in, and that just gives them that boost, and you'll get lovely big bulbs that will flower next year. Thank you for watching Pots and Trowels, and next time we're going to be live in the garden. That's this Thursday the 27th of August. We're going to be on Facebook Live, walking around the garden, talking to Jill about a few cookery tips, answering your questions at the slightly later time of 7 o'clock. So hopefully you'll join us this Thursday. We'll see you then. Bye.